This video is part of a lesson that I did live on stream with Daniel Negreanu, poker legend, who's playing in PogChamps 3, and I gave him a full set of opening ideas with the black pieces, the Scandinavian Defense, the Portuguese Gambit, the Englund Gambit, and later in the video, and I've put a timestamp for this, there is a nasty trap in the ALBIN counter Gambit where you can promote to a knight and win the game within the first 10 moves. Hope you enjoy. Against e4, you have, like, the fastest way to open the game up, you know, the same way you do with white is with the queen pawn. So d5.
People have been doing this to me lately. I find it really annoying. Okay, go on.
So you mean when you play white, they do this to you and you don't like it?
I hate it.
Because you don't get to set the pace. Like,
yeah, I want to play the gambit and they just go, no, take my pawn or I'll take yours. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not the way that you're supposed to pay attention to what I'm doing and do what I want.
Yes. So this is the most reactive first move. I mean, there's a couple of others against the king's pawn. You can play, you know, f5, which is garbage, and knight f6. So this is called the Alekhines defense, and, you know, you're attacking a pawn. The drawback is white can continue to attack you. But this is still an opening. It's played by a lot of grandmasters. But I like this move a lot. And, of course, the first thing we'll look at in the Scandinavian defense is what it's called, is if they take. So I was going to give you a few choices. The truth is, like, the way you can speedrun learning the Scandinavian defense is you take back with the queen, and your queen basically stays here until it's attacked. That might happen now. How would that happen now?
Well, the knight's going to move to...
Right.
Yeah.
Knight c3. And c4. c4 is not as good. It's protected by the bishop. So this is the most common move because people see that they can chase your queen. And you can rotate this queen all the way to the side of the board. And from here, your queen is relatively safe from danger. White can chase it with the pawns, but that's not the most intimidating thing in the world.
Yeah.
You will be able to develop relatively simply. And your development from here is super simple. Like, you don't need a crazy game plan. It's literally like knight, bishop, castle, queenside. And your rook gets to the open file. So it's a lot of, like, it's very easy to play. It's like 5 moves, bam, bam, bam. And then you start adding the layers to it.
Okay, so that's something that nobody ever does that I play against at my level. They don't castle queenside, but that's what you would do with this open.
I would suggest that. I'm not saying, you know, when we kind of look at these openings within the first 5 to 7 moves, it's not like, okay, you must play this and you can only play this. Like, there's a lot of Scandinavians where black castle, you know, has to go this way. And the truth is, as you go higher and higher up the rating ladder, there is like a meta. Like, white can play a certain way, and that forces you to respond. You know, I'll give you an example. Like, black in this position, this is considered the most popular move, but actually another very popular move is to bring the queen all the way back. Which, it just looks stupid. It looks like you've just lost time. But the queen is not a target ever back here. Whereas here it can still kind of be a target. Like, you could still find a way to get yourself trapped if you're not careful. And so oftentimes when you move your queen out this way, you'll have to play a move like this, c6. So that your queen can always drop back if it needs to. But what you're doing is you're playing for a structure. That's it. You're just trying to get a kind of position and then go from there. And now white is already immediately responding to you. So that's one way. You can take back right away. But I wasn't just going to leave you with that.
Okay, good.
I know you like gambits.
I do.
So there's a move in this position where you delay recapturing with the queen. And you play the move knight to f6.
Yeah.
And this move allows white to, like, go, hang on a second. I want to hang on to this pawn with c4.
That seems bad.
It's not that it's, like, so bad as much as you could start really messing around here a little bit. So how would you gambit? The same way that you do in the Danish with the c pawn.
How would I gambit from here with the c pawn? Would I go to c? What would I do? Like bishop to, what is that? F5?
Well, bishop f5 is a good developing move, but no, I mean c6. Yeah, I mean it's
the same idea to get the diagonal with the.
Okay. Yes, and when you play this with black, since you don't have this pawn here, like, see, if this was a Danish, you would go here now.
Yeah.
You'd do the same thing. You'd get your 2 bishops. But here what you do is you can just put your 2 knights out, and these 2 pieces clamp down together on this square.
Mm-hmm.
With the knight and the queen. And this makes it so difficult for white to develop. Because white can never play the move d4.
Right.
If white can't play the move d4, white plays like d3, now white's, blocked. And then you play your bishop c5. Right? Like bishop f5. And you have your Danish style game, except it's mirrored. If you notice, when you play the Danish Gambit with white, you are on a light square diagonal. I'm not sure if you ever you picked that up. Like it's the color complex, so it's all mirrored. When you play this with black, it's on a dark square.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of going in the other direction. But this is literally the same thing. It's kind of like king spawn. You give away your D and your C pawn, and you get this development. So you can do this with black. It has a drawback. Its drawback is that you go second, so white is always a move ahead. And if you play this exactly like the Danish Gambit, white has to rush to play the move d4. Because if white doesn't rush with this move, like white plays, I don't know, knight c3, for example, you could go e5, and now you have your Danish-style position. So bishop c5, knight f6, and you can do, remember this, the queen and bishop diagonal thing?
Yeah.
This is always good. So, like, e4, it's difficult to always get a good gambit against it, but playing d5 is one of my favorites, I would say. There's also ways to set this up. So, for example, there's a defense called the Caro-Kann defense. Have you ever seen e4 c6?
Yeah.
So you've seen this, and then you kind of do the same thing. You push your pawn to d5, but when they take, you move the knight out. So you want them to come and take a second pawn before you respond back, and you want this kind of lead in development. But you notice,
generally speaking, with like the idea of a gambit, I would imagine, because like you're giving a material right off the bat, that it's supposed to be an opening that you want to win the game early, right? Because if it goes late, you're behind.
I would say you don't necessarily want to like win at all costs in the first 10 or 15 moves, but you want to make as many threats and improve your position as fast as possible. So improve your position means coordinate your pieces, which means things like, a few moves back, we had this position. If we get this, for example, you want to, get your queen and bishop on the same diagonal, creating threats. You want a castle. So, get your bishop, queenside castle. Oftentimes, what percent of your games do you think go short castle? Short castle.
Almost like, I mean, I've not played anyone in the last, month that's castled queenside. Not a single time. No joke.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've done it twice in like, I don't know how many, in like 100 games. And I think my opponents have not done it once. I'm like at the 1100-ish rank in 10-minute games. So.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't have any videos like, telling people to castle kingside. So I don't know what people are watching, but that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Is that why Hikaru showed you the queenside castle thing? I remember there was a part of the Danish Gambit lesson where he said like castling queenside can get you very nice attacking chances.
Yeah, I think it was when I think he was talking about. Yeah, I think it was that, or when it was like the Smith Mora, where where they attack with the pawn to, what is it, f4, or no, whatever the other side, it would be c4 right there. That it would be like the Smith Mora Gambit, and then you could reverse the diagonals and flip everything.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, castling in the Smith Mora queenside can be devastating. In fact, castling into most Sicilians queenside is kind of the standard, antidote or way to make the game more exciting. But with black, you can wait for them to castle, and then you castle queenside. Even you know, the gold standard of chess openings, which is e4, e5. I always tell people in these positions, like these, you know, boring Italians. I don't know if you had to like go through this when you were first learning chess, like this kind of boring similar setup. I always tell people like wait for white to go this way, and then you can play like h6, because this move looks like it's a preventative measure, but you're actually trying to go g5. You want to go g5. You want to go g5. You want to go d6. Get this bishop out. Oh, get this bishop out. Get the queen up and go long. And imbalance the game. It is so much more fun to castle on the other side.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, when I first started playing chess, like I always thought it was better because it was cool, because then you get your rook like on a file that's like sometimes attacking the king right away if they haven't castled yet.
Yep. You can also just throw away the pawns. Like you just, you know, you don't care if these pawns get taken because your rooks are right behind them. So you just activate the rooks and you're good to go. E4 gives you a little bit of flexibility, and so like I always recommend to try to throw people off within the first like 5 to 7 moves. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to like knock them out, but you definitely want to choose which one of these. You could play this knight f6. And, you know, ultimately the point of knight f6 is that you don't need to take back with the queen. So, for example, if knight c3 is played, okay, you can do your gambit. You can also just do this.
Yeah.
And, well, this is a very different story. There's no new knight. You know, like,
yeah,
you move your queen out. This, queenside castle. They're going to do their thing over there. They're going to go short. And then g5, g4, h5. Like, just go for the kill on the other side of the board. So
then when you say go for the kill, I'm just trying to march my pawns up the left side in the hopes of what?
Let's play one out. Why don't we do that? So something like this. Now I think this particular position, I wonder if you can just like win this pawn. You can just take and do this, but sure, let's kind of learn how to truly do this. Although here you might want to complete your development with something like e6 and bishop d6, just so you line up one more piece. But, you know, if I say pawn storm, which of these pawns do you think should go first?
Well, typically the one that I would move first is the one on the edge, the h6, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. h5. And
wait,
well, if you go h6, you got to go g5. But the thing is that, you know, you got your rook behind this pawn. So, to be honest, in a perfect world, you kind of want this pawn like not even to exist, because then your rook just sees the entire board. And there's even fun ideas like your bishop here is not even under threat. So this is a concept known as the fishing pole. Like, you want them to take you in certain situations.
How would that work?
So something like this, you know, opens up the rook.
Right.
Where should they move the knight?
Where should they move the knight? I would imagine they should probably protect the h2 square.
So something like this.
Yeah.
All right. How would we help out the rook with some of this pressure?
We would move the queen to h5.
Amazing. Queen h5. Yes. So white is almost dead. White only has one move. Bishop f4.
Yeah.
Now, you might want to think, okay, like I gotta get rid of this bishop. So you're thinking like, what's your first instinct? I go here. What's the first move that pops out to you?
The first one that popped up was g5.
Right. Of course, because I totally agree. G5 and F5 and F4, and I'm also thinking something like this, because it seems incredibly difficult to stop this defense. Sorry, stop this attack. You have something even stronger. So you have like a capture in this position, and I kind of want. I don't know how deep you went.
Oh, so you move the pawn from like g4 to g3, or no?
Well, if you do this, this opens up. And
Yeah.
so,
Oh, yeah. Oops. I don't want to
So-
give my. Right, never mind.
well, the thing is, like, when you look at g3, you know, you visualize this. Oh, that works. That's good. That works. But hold on a second. Let's try to find something that, like, how that doesn't work. And that's kind of like how chess works, period. If you have 5 good moves, but one problem with your idea, it doesn't matter if there's 5 good, you know, kind of like routes that it can go down. If there's one reason it doesn't work, that's kind of it. So, in this case, we're pinned, but even if we were back here, like white would be able to take back with the bishop and kind of hold everything. You can capture something here. You can capture 2 things, but one is better than the other. What can you capture?
Can I capture? Like on this move, capture?
Yep. It's why you castled queenside. I can give you that hint.
I mean, the only thing that makes sense that you could is with the rook and take the pawn and then attack the queen.
Queen and even maybe more
And the
importantly.
bishop. Oh, yeah, duh. And the bishop. That's a good move. I like that one.
And this is sort of like the reason. Like this is why we castled queenside. This is why we got our knight. This is why we got our rook. And in many situations, you also have moves like this. Not in this case, but you know, you kind of put pressure on this, and it can't move. So if you were in a position where just hypothetically, you know, white had this defended, you still have moves like e5, which can crack at the pawn and make it difficult for the pawn to do anything, especially when you're castled queenside with your rook opposite the queen on the other side of the board. But rook takes d4 in this position is lights out. You know, if white plays, for example, queen c1, you would love to do this and then this. You'd love to do that. But you can't do the second move. But
Right.
How do you win the game right now? What's your... We have one more piece that hasn't moved.
Oh, then you would move the bishop and attack the queen?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's game over. Bishop d6. Maybe one more thing. So bishop takes g4. I'm attacking your queen. Both queens under attack. What's the best thing for black to do? Do you cash in or do you stay patient for one move?
Trying to think what would be best. I think doesn't let me see. I don't know. I'm confusing myself. I thought for a second that just queen takes the knight and then queen, and then I have the bishop and the rook that can check him on the next turn.
You are, by the way, everything you're saying is 100% correct. You also can play bishop takes, and you win material. So both of those things are good. What happens if you just do nothing? Like, what happens if you just go here?
If I just go there, then he's screwed.
Who's screwed? You or your opponent?
He's screwed.
He did, yeah. So
he's no longer attacking my queen. And he can't.
Absolutely. So chess can be like this, you know. You see one thing, you see this, you go, "Oh, that looks good. Damn, I'm winning a knight." And you're like, "Wait a second, I'm down a rook. Who cares if I'm winning a knight?" If you played this, oh, that would be even more tragic.
Yeah.
This, you know, and you're like, "Oh, I'm so good," and then they go here, you go, "Oh."
Yeah.
You actually.
No, that's exactly what I realized. Like the thought that I had, I'm like, well, it's not going to end the game. I can't checkmate him. So the idea you came up with to pull the queen back is game over.
Yeah, like it's. By the way, I have to say, like, even in a position like this, you still have some attack. You know, even as a follow up. Let's say you get this position. Black can still continue the attack here on white. You know, you've got all this pressure. So what would you play?
Well, my thought would be to get the pawns going and move G5.
G5. Threatening G4.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because of the pin. Let's say white goes F3.
White goes F3.
Stopping you from playing G4 until you play.
I would have to then play F5.
Yes. White is in some serious trouble here. It's very bad. first of all, if white moves the g pawn, there's this.
Mm-hmm.
So white would play something like king g1, but you notice that like white is still not out of the woods. So the way I kind of want you thinking is like, let's say this is your, right now it's black to move. What's the first thing you spot in a position?
Right now?
Yeah, like first thing.
What's the first thing that I would spot?
Yep. Let's say you're playing a game. You know, you play f5, they play king g1. What's the first thing you spot?
No, we play king g1. That I can double attack the bishop and the pawn on g4.
Right. So you're looking, I mean, you're looking to continue your plan, like, you know, something like this. What's the fallout of the move g4?
The fallout is he takes with pawn, and he takes with, so then he takes with pawn, and then he takes me back with bishop, and I don't have, yeah, he just takes back. So basically just trading there.
Yeah, you would be giving away 2 for 1. Your position does improve a little bit. I mean, when the bishop comes here at the end, it is attacking this pawn. I don't know if that's hard to visualize, but that, because these are gone now.
Yeah.
So this is a threat.
Yeah.
This is more open. You control the whole file. And then this is open because there was a trade of pawns. So these pawns are both gone. There's actually, the g4 is a solid option, but here you have to find the follow-up. And actually, the follow-up and kind of just the first thing that I want you to think of before you think of moves like this, mentally, make sure this is automatic. You have to just make sure you see the checks in the position and anything you can take for free.
Okay, so I can check with the bishop to d4.
Yes. So white's got 2 options. Lose a rook, or put the king back on the same file as the rook.
Yeah.
We were going to go here, right?
Yeah.
Now this works in our favor. And I mean, this just sucks for white. Like, white probably has to go rook f2. And you don't even need to take right away. You probably should, but you can just flex on them for, I don't know, go here or something. Just improve your position because you're not going anywhere. And you have this.
Yeah, I saw that.
And you might think, well, this is stupid. I mean, I'm not so, I mean, it's just a pawn. They go here. Yeah, but hold on. Don't you remember? We still have the check. So yeah. we get a pawn first, and then we bring the bishop back.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, we got the pawn, and now white's entire position falls apart. That concept goes all the way back to the fishing pole concept, which is this, which is where you leave the bishop out for grabs. You can open up your H file and then go on an attack. If they don't take you, and you play like, you know, something like this, notice how I'm moving my pawns here. So
I will say this, one thing that is always, I'm getting better at by doing like puzzles and stuff. Mm-hmm. One thing that's always been like a struggle mentally is to do like, okay, to just give up material, right? Mm-hmm. So like give up a bishop to win a pawn just to give myself a better position. But like, am I good enough to finish from there? And I never really felt comfortable because like when I first started playing chess, all I was like, all right, stay ahead, you know, just win the battle material, trade, and then, you know, win in the end. So like making moves, I like it, you know, when they're bold, but I wonder sometimes if like I see far enough ahead to where I will get it back, or I will, you know, give myself a position that actually can win the game.
I'd say probably on the safe side, it's a little bit better, not like to avoid sacrifices, as you're saying. It's very tough to sometimes pinpoint exactly what you should sacrifice and at what moment. This concept, even, you know, where you go for the fishing pole and you open up the H file when white has castled in that way, that's also something very important here. White has castled this way. You have to make sure that your queen can get there. You know, if your queen's like there, I don't know how it would be there, but just as a practical example, or even here on that square,
yeah,
it's not going to work. Like, you need to, you know, go like this. So I agree with that. Like, The only kind of sacrifices that you want are for at least 2 pawns. So if you give away a bishop or a knight, it's for at least 2 pawns. And then sacrificing to open up a king.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is, I'm just going to bring this back for a second. Like something like this. Also, a good rule of thumb to keep in mind is only sacrifice to attack somebody if you have 2 more attacking pieces than they have defenders. Perfect example. Do you have enough of an attack here?
Do I have enough of an attack? I just have all I have is the queen attacking. Although I mean, the rook is sort of buried behind the pawn, so just one piece.
Yeah. Like, your queen is, I mean, it's just the queen. So, yeah. Queen, give a check. Bishop blocks. White's going to bring back a knight. Still an interesting position. Like, you could try to make this work, but the general rule of thumb is it's going to be a lot harder unless you have backup. You have a knight, you have a bishop, you have, 3 pieces together in some capacity. But this case, it's very difficult. You definitely need some sort of reinforcements. Notice one really important move that I played was f6. So when you castle queenside, this is kind of the setup that you want. You want h5 on its own, and then maybe launching the h-pawn. But these two are always a little tricky, and generally it's if you play the f-pawn up 1 square, it can be like the trampoline for the next pawn. So g5. And then these 2 pawns together are gonna, do the heavy lifting. The f-pawn doesn't need to, because where are you going to march it? Into the knight? Like, it's not going anywhere. So, right. But these 2, h and g pawns, that's where you're going to kind of, like, make your... It's a poker. I mean, I was going to say make your money. I'm not trying to be cheesy, but...
yeah, right. Yeah.
It's yeah, I mean, it's where the money will be made, I suppose. Now, e4 players... Another way that I kind of think about this is e4, e5 is what they faced, like, a lot. You play e4, you tell me, what is it, 80%, 90% of your games e4, e5? Like,
I only play the Danish Gambit.
Oh, yeah, so, like, okay. So, that's actually hilarious. Like, I've had days where I won't get a subscriber that plays e5. I just get, d5 or c6, and it's probably because I've yelled at them to stop playing e5. Because I don't think e4, e5 should be mandatory curriculum anymore. But we've only looked at e4. You're gonna get this too. And a lot of people are playing the London. Do you face the London a lot? Is that?
I don't know what that is really.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm gonna teach you what it is, and I'll teach you how to beat it. So. People will love this, because this is the London is a very soul-sucking opening. The point is that White just doesn't really do anything. White just casually develops their pieces, but in the London, if you do that, you have no weaknesses. So, like here, for example, what would you play with Black?
What would I play with Black? I would probably just, like, develop... I would just, actually what I have been playing is I've been playing E6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then developing, I guess, with these 2 and something like this, or?
Yeah, I'd be moving the knight next, yeah.
Okay. Got it. Very solid. Like, good. I like it. We're not trying to do anything insane. Generally, when you play queen's pawn positions, the pawn that is usually used as a complement to pressuring the center is the c-pawn. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it's called, like, first of all, if you've watched the Queen's Gambit, but this is the Queen's Gambit, d4, d5, c4.
I used to play that one. I used to play the Queen's Gambit back in the day.
With White?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's, the C and F pawns, the ones one off the center, are known as the flank pawns. They're kind of used to deflect the center pawns, and the meta, if you will, is that you'll win the pawn back because it's hard to hang on to.
Yeah.
And then one side will have 2 central pawns, the other side will have 1. And that's considered good for the side of 2 pawns.
Mm-hmm.
But you play the Danish Gambit, you don't care if you're down a pawn, even two. So you just want to open position. So I was going to show you a couple of different ideas you can play against the queen's pawn. Number one, you've got a gambit which you could play on move 1. It's not very good, but only if they know what they're doing. So they don't know what they're doing. It's fantastic. In fact, you can checkmate somebody in 8 moves. Do you actually, a question for you, do you prefer that? Do you prefer games you win in 8 moves, or do you like to feel like you've played a good game and you've...
So that's the interesting thing. That's why I kind of enjoy the idea of white and black, and I sort of approach both differently. Like I think of it like if I was going to use a poker analogy, it's like white has the button, which is position and power, and then black, you know, the other player would be like on defense. So I think when I think with white, I think super aggro, like let's get him. And then with black, I just instinctively felt like, all right, let's make this a slow, closed, drawn out game where he's got, like, what I like to see happen, a lot of that happens in my games because I play my opens a little different, is often white starts with this major attack. They're trying to get me quick by they're trying to get their knight to like what is it, G5, and then they have that bishop. So they want to attack my F7 pawn, and then like they set that up as though I'm not going to see it, you know, and they're going to screw me. And then eventually I move like E7 to E6, and I block the whole damn thing. Now I go up the right with what is that? A6 followed by B5, and then the bishop has to keep retracting. And then sometimes, you know, the bishop traps itself, and then I try to move the bishop to the diagonal on B7.
I love it. Actually, that's really nice, especially in positions with D4, especially with queen's pawn, because the truth is, like, the F7 square is the weakest point, and it's one of the reasons I mean I like that you play the Sicilian, but this cuts all that out because, like, you know, you get your queen there, and then this is defended. You can rotate your queen over to the side or back. You never really need to worry about the F7 pawn being a weakness, but in D4, that isn't usually white's like plan. It's actually to go a little bit more slowly. They can still do the same thing to you with bishop and knight, like this, and then hit you on C7.
Yeah,
that they can do, but rarer, also garbage. Like, it's just that one's just not even good at all. But I mean, I can suggest certain openings that are like aggressive, and I will, and it's kind of up to you to be like, okay, I like that, like, let me give that a shot. Maybe it works. Maybe I start winning all my games, and then I can also kind of give you how to play a little bit more solidly with black. But to be honest, it doesn't matter whether you play white or black. Like, you could completely play the game on your own pace, whichever color you play. I actually personally like to play black more. I play a lot more aggressive with black. I play more solid with white. That's
what I'm thinking is, this is just what I'm thinking is, I think the tournament's like in mid-February. So I'm wondering what if you think it's best for me, because this is kind of how I would approach poker, to sort of like master like a really good, you know, open for each, or spend some time like learning different ones and kind of like, you know, sort of learn them all. Like, I mean, because it's going to be more difficult to sort of, if you give me like 30 openings, for example, like I'm not going to be able to master all 30 most likely, but if I had 2 that I, you know, really have a good feel for, is that a better idea? Because my concern too, I guess, is I don't know how this tournament works. I've never played a chess tournament. It's like, once people know I play the Danish Gambit, they're just like, all right, well, they're just going to defend against it properly, and I'm screwed.
So that's exactly what's going to happen. Previous editions, you know, as it gets more competitive, there's a group stage. If you emerge into the champions bracket, when you emerge into the champions bracket, they're going to be like, all right, this guy's going to play the Danish Gambit. Well, let me play a different defense. And you're going to be like, oh, they play this. I'm going to play this. And ideally, you show up to game day having prepped something no one knew you were going to play. And at the 1100, 1200, whoever's going to be your competitor, surprise is good, but you still have to play the game itself. And, you know, surprise only takes you so far. I think, like, the best thing to do to emerge in March when the tournament is over, number 1, to win this thing, and number 2, to just feel like you've like really evolved your chess, is to learn a few things. I don't want you playing 1,000 games of one opening until the tournament is over. I think it's just I personally like I find that terribly boring. I like to learn.
I did enjoy before, like my friend showed me the Danish Gambit because he said like at your level you'll win a lot of games because people don't know what to do against it and they make like really dumb mistakes. But before that, I was exclusively using like the Queen's Gambit. I mean, I don't remember how to do it because it's been a while, but both those openings, I enjoyed, and those are the only two that I ever like spent a decent amount of time on. I never really did the whatever you call that, like traditional Italian one. I never. That one seemed like you said kind of boring. I was like, well, I don't want to play boring.
Very symmetrical. Yeah. The Queen's Gambit, there's a lot of like tricks and traps. I mean, speaking of, so Gambit on the first move, e5.
Yeah, that's not a good one, is it?
So I will show this to you. I will show you the best thing that white can do against it. And then I will show you, well, there's two things that really in particular white can do. And I can show you everything white can do wrong. The wrong exceeds the right by a lot.
All right.
So, number one, they take.
Yeah.
You're going to try to win this back, not with the queen in this case, but with the knight. So how would you do that?
I would move my knight to c6.
Yes, you could go ahead and move it just because you need the...
Oh, here we go.
The muscle memory. So knight c6. I'm gonna defend it with my knight. I mean, bishop knight doesn't really matter. Nothing else really to defend this with here. So knight f3. And now you're gonna attack this with the queen.
I am. Okay. So then I'm moving here.
Yes. So the biggest trap of this opening is the fact that a lot of London players, and just a lot of London being the opening with the bishop to f4. And just in general, people who are trying to hang on to this pawn, they will go here. Now your queen shows its second idea. It wasn't just trying to go here. It was also trying to go here.
Oh, wow. So now you just steal the bishop.
Well, unfortunately, a bishop can come back, but you are also threatening this.
Right. Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, if white goes here, you win the bishop. Fantastic.
And if not, then I can just attack that pawn.
Exactly. So if the bishop comes back, goes like this. Now, what do you think is white's best move here?
He needs to move his knight to c3.
Very good. So knight c3 is the best move. Knight c3 is 100% the best move. And if they play knight c3, you have to, you've got to defend a little bit. You got to slowly like get back, and then move on with life. If they play bishop c3 and attack you like this, you don't move your queen.
I don't move my queen.
How do you save your queen here?
Oh, I see. I save my queen by pulling my bishop out to b4.
Yes.
And now I just get to attack again with basically he can't attack my queen. I get to take his bishop. And then he can take with the knight, and then I just take with the queen, and then I take his rook, and
it's yeah. And the best part is if they go here, you actually don't take the rook. You go here, and now you're threatening this and this.
Oh, deadly!
So
that's where the quick resign.
Well, we haven't come to the the whole the most beautiful one. If white defends like this, you take it. Obviously, if white takes with the knight, there's this. But if they take with the queen, there's mate.
Yeah, so brutal. Yeah, I like this move. All right, I'm gonna work on this one.
If you try this, you will get this kind of a thing. Queen e7, queen b4. It will happen. The problem is that
what's this one called?
So it's Englund. It's Englund, but instead of A, it's U. Englund. I guess it's named
England. Okay, I see it there.
I don't know if it's named after.
So the Englund is where you right off the bat, if he plays d4, play e5 and be like YOLO.
Exactly. And you're required to type it in the chat as well.
YOLO.
So here's the good thing about this.
Misclick, because like in poker we have a thing called misclick. Oops, just oops, like and pretend I didn't mean to.
So that's actually, when we stream and we think we're getting stream snipe, we'll say something like that. We'll be like, oh shit, and then you catch somebody. But you could be like, oh my bad, I meant to play e6, and then
Yeah, bluff.
So
You can incorporate some bluffing in chess.
exactly. There's now. Here's the thing. If White knows what they're doing somehow by some miracle, White is going to get a good position. So first things first, if we just look at kind of going down that path with the Queen E7 and then Bishop F4, and then here, and then here, and then here, and then here. There's Bishop to B4 is now met with Rook to B1.
That's bad.
It's not good. No.
No.
You have to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And then they chase you down. And then you got to get out again.
Yeah.
So could be a little bit messy.
So you just have to take the queen all the way back, right? To like B6 or something?
Over the course of, over the course of time, you'll have to bring the queen back. And then this position is a little bit annoying. You'll have to, for example, you're going to take this. I don't know. They got this. It's very messy. Mm-hmm. Very, very messy. But the other thing that they can do is they can just give you this pawn. They just don't have to hang on to the pawn. They could just develop.
Right.
And if you get this is considered good for White, but you could still get a very playable position if you take back. And then, for example, they go here. And then you take back. And you just develop your pieces. So something
like, I guess, I don't know who told me this, but early on my chess, it was like, I was always told the old adage, like, don't bring your queen out of the game early, because then you have to move it around too much, and it's bad if you have to move your queen like multiple times in a row.
Yes, that is the, like, at the highest level, like that, like I said, I keep saying like meta, but I mean, I'm serious. It's, you're not supposed to do that. Why? Because your opponent's gonna develop their pieces the correct way, and you'll waste time. But the truth is, it's a matter of one move oftentimes, and you get a position you're familiar with, they get a position they're not familiar with, you know all the plans, they don't. And, in this case...
That's what we call in poker, that would be called, not GTO, game theory optimal, but exploitative. You're exploiting the fact that, the players at your level will make mistakes against what you're doing, rather than, against grandmasters who are you're just giving them an advantage.
Yes, I also just realized there is a dog.
Yeah, my little guy Rocky. Hey, buddy.
Oh, that's amazing.
Good boy.
I live on a street with a lot of dog owners. Every time I leave the house, I know them by name, and see, okay, now suddenly it makes sense. Everybody in the chat was yelling about a dog, and I'm like, am I getting pranked? I don't. It's a fine balance you have to strike as a streamer between figuring out if they're talking about something that exists or if they're baiting you.
Right.
Amazing. Okay, we live in a no pets allowed apartment for 6 more months, and then we will move and we will get a dog or a cat. So, this is what I would say is the fastest gambit that you can play against the queen's pawn.
I like it. This is going to be the one I'm practicing now.
Okay, so if this goes to shit and it never works and I lose you like 50 points,
okay. I mean, I'm sure I'll screw it up in the beginning, because that's what every time I learn something new, like I drop, because I'm doing it wrong.
Okay, I'm very glad you said that, because I get people will buy an openings course from me and then I'll get an angry email. I got this course, I lost like 80 points. I'm like, that's supposed to happen, because when you're first learning, it doesn't flow naturally. You're trying too hard to play the right move at that moment, and you just got to play the position. You got to build the experience.
Very much like, I don't know if you golf, but it's very much like golf. Like whenever you make a swing change to make yourself better in the long run,
it
feels really awkward, feels terrible, and it makes you worse. Like you're just immediately worse. But if you keep practicing it, you see gains. Like Tiger Woods famously did that. He was already the best player in the world, and he's like, well, I got to change my swing. He got worse. And then he got, even better than he was before. So seems similar, like learning a completely new open, you don't have enough reps in a situation to know how to respond yet. I mean, that's why I feel good with Danish Gambit now, because I've played it so much more than everybody else at my level. Like nobody else plays it. So.
And you have experience. You don't need to spend if you're playing a 10-minute game, you don't need to spend 3 minutes figuring out the best plan. The positions come to you. So very happy you brought that up, because that's So important. I've experienced that too. When I was training for tournaments, I learn a new thing. I go play. I lose all my games, but like I'm doing well in the opening. I'm just taking too much time, or I'm not finding the right move at the right moment. But
I literally did drop 50 points after my last chess lesson, and then I got them back. I did. I dipped under 1100. Like just boom, boom, boom.
yes, there you go. There you go. It's great because, you know, we have a lot of new chess players who are maybe below 800, below 700, but there's a lot of people who are like 1100, 1200, and that's a hard, like that's when chess is the most fun, but it can feel brutal learning something new, and then, you know, you tank everything. One of my favorite days of my chess training career was I did a very productive 90-minute lesson with my grandmaster coach. I was on fire solving all these practical exercises. I went to the chess.com pool. I'm like, I'm gonna kick some ass. I played Valery Sviridov, some Russian guy. I got
there. Bravo.
Yeah, no, well, I speak Russian, so I have to pronounce, you know. I got 5-0'd. I got mopped, like destroyed, and I didn't play chess for the rest of the day. So it was awful experience. I'm also going to give you a gambit and actually a much more solid option, a much more solid complex that you can play very aggressive, which doesn't have the drawback of being like not good if they know what they're doing. Whereas the Danish, if they know what they're doing, it's an equal position. But with black, if you play gambits and it sucks, you get a very bad position. So we're going to go d4, d5. First, we're going to look at the queen's gambit. Remember that e5 move?
Oh, you still do it?
Yes. This is called the ALBIN counter gambit. So you're gambiting their gambit.
Interesting.
You can play the move e5.
I've seen people do that to me when I used to play the queen's gambit, and I didn't understand it.
Well, I don't know. Maybe they could have just been straight up making a mistake. It's actually a relatively well-respected opening. It's very good. So here's the idea. The idea is that, of course, if they take this, you get your queen out, but now you're attacking this. So, you know, you just have straight up like an attack already going. If they take on e5,
yeah,
remove their right to castle.
That's what I would do, exactly. Yep.
And you would play knight c6, going for this.
That's a good position.
And you notice in a lot of these positions we're doing
queenside, yeah. Queenside.
Yeah, exactly. Faster. So bishop f5, long castle, attack. So if they take on e5, which is a little bit better, now it's kind of like the point. You plug the center. So d4. Why? What does that do?
So he plugs the center, as you said. It makes it, he cannot develop his knight on c3. He can't develop a bishop to, you know, e3. He can't, if he tries to move his pawn forward, we take his pawn and then we take his queen, and then he can no longer castle. So it really slows his development, right? That
is exactly the point. White has to know what they're doing here, and if they don't, which, I mean, frankly, I've played 2200s that don't know what they're doing here. For example, this very natural move is already very bad. It's almost losing. It's almost losing because if you take, and they take, you take their queen, but they take your queen first, it's an issue. But like I said, I always want you thinking about just scanning the checks first. You have a check in this position.
Yeah, bishop to b4.
Right. If they block with the knight, now you snap this, and what is this? It's terrible. Yeah. Doubled isolated pawns. You don't get your knights out, bishop, and, you know, knight, bishop. So now here's the most famous trap. Bishop to d2. You still take the pawn. Then, like, what? What about my bishop?
Right, and now... Oh, he can't... Huh? Oh, so now I would... So basically, if I do this now, like, if he takes my... So it's my turn, right?
Yep.
So if he takes my queen... Well, queen, I have to take back the queen. Wow, this is...
Don't forget about this.
Yeah, that's the one where I would take that... So I would... Oh, I can check him now. Yeah, I can check him now.
Yep.
And then if he takes... Well, would he take? Yeah,
Hello.
great. So like, if he takes the pawn, then I take his queen, and if he moves the other way, then she has to. He has to take the pawn. Or no, if he doesn't take, yeah, I win the knight. I either win his knight or his queen. That's a pretty good trade-off.
So it's even worse than taking his. So you're saying this, and you win the knight.
Mm-hmm.
It's even more brutal than that. So if you took the knight first of all, why does this not work? Like, you want to cash in on everything. Why does that not work?
Why does that not work?
Looks really good.
Yes, because then he just blocks with his knight.
Correct. So you have that in mind. So, but if you take the knight now, if you take the knight now and then want to go here, is white going to take back, or are they going to go here first? Like, for example.
Okay. So he has to take that queen first, I would imagine, with the rook.
Which queen capture is more forcing for white, making you react?
Oh, well, he has to take the queen next to my king and check me.
Check you, then get rid of the other queen. Now both queens are gone.
Yeah.
Right. Unless you play this. Oops.
What do you mean? You made yourself a knight?
Because it's check.
Holy shit. I never thought of doing that. I always wondered why they bother saying, like, do you want to be a queen or do you want something else? And I'm like, well, why would I have to be a queen? So the only other thing you would ever want to be other than a queen is really a knight in a spot like that.
There is one case you would want a rook, and that's way later in the game if a queen is a stalemate.
Right. I was thinking.
Yeah.
The queen.
Yeah. You basically never promote to a bishop unless you want to disrespect somebody. But taking with the knight forces them to react to you.
Well, what if he puts his king just back on the e1?
Good. You have a check in this position. Hunt them down. Not with the knight, but with some.
I have to swap queens. Oh no, wait. I have the queen to h4.
Yeah, it's really bad news here, because if pawn up, you have check.
Mm-hmm.
Ouch! They lose a rook.
Yep.
And if
that's all sexy stuff that good players know how to do. I like it.
Yeah, no, it's this is a legendary trap, and you know what I like the most about this ALBIN, ALBIN, is that if it goes here, there is a very high chance that they do this, because people don't like to be restricted. Like, they want a trade. They're like, dude, maybe he'll trade with me. If this, then this. I'm so smart. Then you go here. They go, what the hell is this? Like, and then if you can under promote to a knight, hold Alt and do this. That'd be something. You have to, actually. If you make the queen, it's bad because they get both queens off the board, and then it's not so good for you. So this only makes sense, you notice, against the Queen's Gambit. Like, we got to play e5.
Yeah.
Because it was the Queen's Gambit. But if they play the London, it's a little bit harder. It's not so simple because we can't go e5. So what I recommend is that if you don't get a Queen's Gambit ALBIN, c4 with e5, then what you can do is, again, you can go for a position where you try to castle queenside.
Mm-hmm.
So what that would look like is something like this. Let's say knight c6. They go knight f3. And then you can copy them, but actually even bishop to g4 is a little bit more, like, aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And have you seen this kind of concept, like something like this? Like, what do you usually do when this happens? Do you just rotate the bishop back?
I mean, I usually do that to people. When I'm black, I always move the bishop out of the way. But if someone moves it to me, I typically don't. Like, I always feel like, okay, well, if I move it back, then I just waste 2 moves of retreat. So often I'll trade and just take the knight.
So going back is okay as long as they haven't improved their position substantially. And in this case, this is totally okay for you. This is not an improvement for white's position. You have to remember that pawns don't go backwards. So those pawns could just be targets. Like now white is not going to castle this way. And this bishop is totally okay. So if you do trade bishop for knight, there has to be a good reason. In this case, you can make the argument, I'm damaging the pawn structure. Right. You could say that. You said, you know, chess players make things look sexy sometimes. So I'm damaging the pawn structure. If you've traded off your light squared bishop, where are you going to move your e-pawn now? Where are you going to put most of your pawns if you've traded your light squared bishop?
Traded my light squared bishop. I did. I traded my light squared
bishop.
Yep. So I got to move that pawn so that I can have the other bishop in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Where would I move it?
Yep.
I mean, I would probably just move it to e6.
Yes. In this case, you know, you have enough chess experience. You know that just because in that one position we play e5 doesn't mean you have to play it in every position. That's like what people forget. It's not always the ALBIN counter gambit. We are very far from the ALBIN counter gambit. So yeah, just go, you know, e6 and then get your bishop out, get your knight out. If you've traded your light squared bishop and they still have a light squared bishop, you can create a light squared complex. What that means is that you have a bunch of pawns counteracting the only light squared bishop that exists.
Right.
And that way that bishop can't really like do anything. You talked about it before, you know, you do like e6, d5, a6, b5 to get your bishop out. In this case, you can just create a nice and solid structure.